Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Moments with Mindleaps. Thank you so much for all of you who are joining us regularly. As I do my favorite part of my job, I get the chance to meet with all of these really fascinating people around the world. And oh my goodness, look at this one. I get to kind of even said my own name. And this week, we're going to meet with Adam McKinney. My name is Rebecca Davis. Oh, Adam, I love the hair.
Hey, thank you. It's my quarantine curls.
You should have prepared me for that. I would have tried to do more with mine. I was just saying to our guests, Adam, that Moments with Mindleaps is my favorite part of my job right now. Right now, what I get to do every Friday is speak with wonderful people like you who are artists and are using their arts for changing our communities, trying to solve the problems in the world that seem to be getting bigger, and really looking at the healing side of this powerful art form. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity to speak with Adam McKinney, who goes back a long ways with me. And I remember the first time that we had the chance to interact, and I was so excited to get correspondence from a principal dancer at Alvin Ailey, who then went on to dance with Cedar Lake and Milwaukee Ballet before that, and then started his own dance company, dnaworks, looking at art and healing, and then found himself in Rwanda, building important bridges, and then landed at Texas Christian University and 1,000 interesting things in between all of those signposts. So Adam, thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Rebecca. I really appreciate it.
Adam, I think one thing that's always been so beautiful with you as a person and in all of the different ways you do your work is a true love of art as a healing power. But you've had a hugely professional, successful career as well in the purest technical side of the art form. Tell us a little bit about what dance has meant to you, and maybe that's changed or evolved, but where does that deep passion and understanding of the art form come from?
Thanks, Rebecca. My father played football. He was a college athlete and helped Wisconsin is a state in the United States. Kenosha, Wisconsin, right now is going through a lot of unrest around reconciling police brutality against Black men in particular. And my mom is a visual artist.
Oh, wow.
And so I played a lot of sports as a young person and was into piano and singing and music. And when I took my first dance class, I already knew how to do tour enchaînement, like chaîné turns, and grand jeté. It felt like dance was already in my body. So dance for me is like this beautiful amalgamation mix of athleticism and athletics and aesthetics, this idea of form and the function of dance is something that I'm really interested in. You referenced social justice, and my parents were married in 1964. My dad is Black American and Native American, and my mom is American and Eastern European Jewish. And so my very being was created in this promise of possibility and of seeing each other as humans and of liberation potentially. So dance for me was aesthetics, athletics, and social justice. And social justice is very much central to how I see the world through dance. And for me, dance in particular is one of those ways that we remember that we are not alone. That I think part of the reason why COVID-19 is difficult for us right now is because, especially as dancers, is because it's hard to dance alone. That we actually need each other and that our cells move and are attracted by other people in space and that we are inspired by other people as we dance together. And in turn, for me, dance is automatically healing. that it has the capacity to heal the now, like what we're dealing with now, and with history. When we look at historical hurts, and we can talk about Rwanda in a moment, but certainly when we think about the United States and what's going on right now in terms of reconciling histories of enslavement of African people and African heritage people and trying to make sense of that all, I go back to my body and I go back to dance to allow myself to move through the hurt so that I can think on the other side, so that I am in charge of my joy and my thinking and my connection to other people.
I think
So I hope that answers your question.
Oh my gosh, it is. I don't even know like which kernel of those beautiful thoughts to pull out, to be honest. One thing that strikes me, I had this Polish teacher who had grown up in the Soviet Union and was always telling me, you know, through discipline and through suffering, we become free, right? And I think when you talk about, you know, when this healing power and this idea to try to like process our history, there's something really organic about the body. And yes, I mean, to like work to the beautiful levels that you have in the art form, there is huge amount of work, physical work that goes into the body. But yeah, then somehow there's like this emotional opening in how you view the world and how you can interact with others that gives you. And I wonder if you could maybe try to like parse out for us. You talk about, you know, your father's as an athlete and your mother's an artist, and then how you kind of saw dance as this ability to make sense of the world and move forward through the world. But how did that, like, was that innate for you, like the first time you tried dance, or was it really kind of watching the world around you, or I mean, such a sophisticated understanding of it from such an early age?
Yeah, I started dancing as a senior in high school. That's when I took my first ballet class, because it was at the suggestion of a choreographer that I'd worked with in musicals. She said, you know,
Cool.
he is really coordinated. He might want to take a dance class. And I said, I would never take a dance class. Why would I ever take a dance class? And because it came so naturally to me, it is something that I moved in the direction of.
Okay.
Simultaneous to finding dance, I was also interested in learning more about history.
Yeah.
And about trauma, histories of trauma and how that affects us today. And liberation, looking at theories of liberation. And so these two ideas were separate, that I was learning about dance and I was learning about liberation, but they were separate. And I was really interested in using my privilege as a dancer and as a student in the university to really think about what are those intersections. Are we back?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
There's beautiful at the moment. What are those intersections? And then it's like freeze. So we all ask ourselves the question.
Yeah, so like, what are those intersections? What are the natural intersections? What are the not so natural intersections? And where can I bring my thinking to bring them together?
Wow.
And that has looked like many different things. It has looked like creating dances about returning to Benin, West Africa, and dancing back through the door of no return. The door of no return there is a memorial that memorializes enslaved African people as they were sent off into the Mafa, the Middle Passage. And what does it mean for me as a mixed heritage Black person to return and dance back through the door of no return as a way to reclaim my Black identity, and also to undo the trauma that has ensued because of the ways in which Black people have been treated and seen. It also looks like creating dances with veterans and looking at post-traumatic stress disorder, and using dance as a healing modality among veterans. It has also looked like traveling to Rwanda, where I had an opportunity to teach classes over at Mindleaps in Nyamirambo on 2 occasions. Hello, my Mindleaps friends
Oh
over
my
there in
God, they've all
Rwanda.
been waiting for this.
So special. And working with a woman named Godelieve Mukasarasi, who started an amazing organization called Sevota in Taba, Kamonyi, Rukoma, Rwanda. Godelieve has been instrumental in healing communities through social work, social justice, programming, and the arts through dance, through theater, through music. Godelieve was also instrumental in ensuring that rape was identified as a crime of genocide in 1997 in Tanzania at the International Criminal Tribunal Court of Rwanda. So she is an amazing, amazing, well-known social justice leader and advocate in Rwanda. Her vision is to develop Sevota Institute, which will be a home for all of the Sevota chapters around
Oh, wow.
Rwanda and the 11 different districts that will be right in Kamonyi across the street from the courthouse there. And we are working with her to develop Sevota Institute. We, and by we, I mean Texas Christian University School for Classical and Contemporary Dance, where I am a professor of dance. And it's a long process, and we are hopeful that it will develop into this beautiful center in the next few years. And with Sevota, we are using dance to build community across lines of nationality and gender and ethnicity specifically.
I'm so glad you brought up Savota and Godelieve, and I'm really excited to hear about this next step where she's growing her program across the country. That's fantastic news. And I think one thing that, I mean, through our relationship and through our work in Rwanda, Godelieve's work is so pronounced in her commitment to one of the most underserved communities. And I think a lot of times, and I think this is really prevalent in your career, Adam, that you've been so sensitive to the fact that dance is supposed to be for everyone. It's supposed to heal everyone. It's not supposed to be for certain people or groups who have access. No matter like what country you're in, we still kind of see somehow that dance like segregates. And I wonder if you can speak a little bit about how you have first become connected to Rwanda, but then also how you see kind of these grassroots leaders really being able to overcome, with the support of Texas Christian University and thought leaders, this ability to really break down those obstacles and barriers that maybe like other countries like ours still need to really learn.
Mm-hmm. You use the word sensitivities, and I'm thinking about dance practice. That for me, dance is about going inside and feeling where my body is in space. It's about développé to the side or développé à la seconde and feeling how my leg is dragging up the other and I'm lifting the knee, but I'm also rotating and pressing down on this side so that this side can lift and grow. It's about thinking about many different ideas and sensitivities at the same time.
That is so perfectly put.
Yeah. And your question was about how I first got connected to Rwanda. I first became connected to Rwanda through Texas Christian University and the School for Classical and Contemporary Dance specifically, working with my colleagues Susan Douglas Roberts and John Singleton specifically. But I'm also thinking about my Jewish heritage and the ways in which Jews have been viewed in history and the ways in which Jews have been seen as outsiders and as targets for oppression and genocide specifically. And having that understanding and that background as a Jew, I think also informed some of the ways in which I see my work in Rwanda and see our work in Rwanda. And it is, for me, the possibility of change and the real possibility of healing. And I'm thinking about the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in particular, and the fact that that happened in our lifetimes, in some of our lifetimes. I'll speak for myself, in my lifetime. And looking to see what the country has produced in terms of a countrywide charge to heal and to take the responsibility to talk about what happened. And I think that we as a country here in the United States are still trying and wrestling with the idea of how to communicate the effects of oppression and of slavery in particular. And because it is centuries old, because the hurt is centuries old, I think it is that much more difficult to look at it and to make sense of it and to feel it. And I think that a lot of our work, and I'll speak for TCU and the School for Classical and Contemporary Dance specifically, and shout out to my former student, Caroline Biondo, who taught a Mindleaps class recently. Our work together with Mrs. Muka Sarasi in particular offers a model for what might be possible for us here to take lead around what healing, and through dance in particular, could look like. And we are very much looking to Godelieve Muka Sarasi and Savota to support us in developing those models here. I think often because of histories of colonialism, there is a pull to for it to be in the opposite direction, that it is Americans telling colonized countries what to do and what models to create. And I think having that sensitivity, as we were talking about before, and having to think about all of these different things at the same time, and flipping the script, kind of subverting the idea of power and privilege to ensure that Godelieve is the leader in terms of our relationship, and certainly has much more experience using her knowledge to heal her own community. And like I said, I think that, you know, she's doing amazing things in her 11 different districts along throughout the country of Rwanda, and we look to her as an expert to support our work here.
I think there's something like really important that you touched on in terms of like the timing and also with the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, like the breadth, or the reach of this atrocity. One thing that's just, I think, so remarkable about Rwanda is the speed at which this atrocity happened and the reach it had. So basically everyone now who's all part of this generation has it in their memory and remembers the before, remembers the during, and remembers the rebuilding afterwards. So some of the circles I've been a part of talk about how like this collective healing is something that then creates, I don't know that uniform is the right word, but a consensus and how we want to move forward, and why it is so critical that we find that cooperation. And how you kind of compare it with the history and the centuries old pain that we have in this country. It's very easy for people to not have experienced that trauma or that rebuilding process. And I wonder where, like pondering out loud, I wonder where dance plays in that world, because dance has the ability to make everybody feel when it's shared. It doesn't matter if it wasn't you, or if it wasn't you, or if it wasn't your experience or your time. That emotional, that like provocative time and experience that you have creates this connection. And I just so interested in how TCU and your work specifically, I think a lot with DNA Works, really like taps into that power. And I sometimes wonder why it's not kind of done all the way across the country, and what it would take for people to understand that power that exists in that.
Yeah, I think sometimes I think dance is political automatically because we have bodies. And anytime we go back to our body and we listen to our body, it is always in, there's always a friction there in terms of the capitalist structure, the money-based structure of society, and colonial structures of who owns my body and why. And I think also going to our bodies sometimes is scary because our bodies hold history and our bodies hold truths. And if we are to tell the truth, to really tell the truth, it can be a really, threatening experience.
That's why it's powerful.
Exactly. And that is why it's a contradiction, right, to the oppression specifically. I'd like to share with you about one of our projects at DNA Works. So DNA Works is the arts and service organization that I started with Daniel Banks in 2006. And we create dance, film, and theater about issues that are important to communities. One piece that we're working on right now is looking at the history of lynching in Texas, USA specifically. So for those of us who might not be familiar with the term, lynching is a word that is used to describe the killing of Black people specifically because they are Black. And because they have been accused most often of crimes that they did not commit. Most specifically between the years of 1890 and 1950. At least that is how the Equal Justice Initiative, an organization that's based in Montgomery, Alabama, USA, defines it. And so we are looking at a history of lynching here in Fort Worth, Texas. And we are using augmented reality technology, that's like technology like Pokemon Go, to take people on a bike and bus tour to the sites associated with the lynching of Mr. Fred Rouse that happened in 1921, almost 100 years ago. And I think often that Black stories in the United States in particular are not told, and they are not placed in the center of our history as Americans. And so we are using the physical act of moving and cycling and technology, this is my phone here, to locate these sites of trauma in particular, and then to share stories together through a story gathering process about our own experiences around hurt, racism, racial terror, and the ways in which we found healing and reconciliation. The goal is to bring people together who normally would not come together to learn about a story that is not normally shared nor told. I'm thinking about Mindleaps and how, like, when I go to Mindleaps, like, it's so easy to get people dancing. Like, we're just gonna dance. It's just pas de bourrée, pirouette, and a split. Jump down. You know, I love watching Mindleaps on IG Live, by the way, Rebecca and Bashir. And here in Fort Worth, Texas, we're using the idea of cycling and moving as that way to get people physically and physical together, physically moving and physical together. It's also, I'd just like to share this last thing, and I'm just really passionate about it, so you'll have to excuse me. But we're also using this idea of resistance, that we have to move against resistance to build strength. And I'm an avid cyclist, and so part of it is, somewhat selfish in terms of my love for cycling. But the goal is to practice what it means to move against resistance and to be anti-racist upstanders through the practice of using the app. So I won't give up all the secrets around the app here, but it'll be downloadable, and maybe you all can share it on your Instagram and help get the word out about it.
When is it going to be available? It sounds like the work is in progress, or it's already finished.
We are putting the finishing touches on it now, and it'll be available mid-December 2020.
Okay, right. I think I just get so excited when you talk about dnaworks, because I think it captures what you're talking about, is that actually, if we're very honest with the work, it can be threatening. But then every time I've had the chance to interact with dnaworks, there's this space for healing, but it's beyond or additional to this space for sharing. So it gives us room to reflect and to use that time to help us process these things, instead of just shocking us with news or an incident and then throwing us into the world of confusion. It does more than just that performance or that moment. And I think that that's just so instructive, but in a very equal way, where everybody is participating in that. And I just wish that all of us, including Mindleaps, can learn more from these important techniques.
Thanks,
Adam,
Rebecca.
oh my gosh, I'm so disappointed that this has to be limited to 30 minutes, because now I have, I don't know, 15 more questions for you. So I'll only use one, but it's going to leave me with many more in my head, Adam. Young artists, I just wish I had been a student at TCU before I started Mindleaps. But for how fortunate your students are, or for those of us who want to be your students, what advice can you give to young people, artists, but beyond artists, people who are trying to make sense of our world today and do good in the right way? Could you give us maybe just one takeaway or two takeaways? I know it's a gigantic question, but
I think I'm thinking about myself as a young person and what I needed to hear. And I think I needed to hear that my thinking is good, and that the world needs your thinking. That my mother reminds me that if you are the one who sees a problem, then you are the one specifically attuned to fix that problem. If you see a problem in a particular way, and no one else sees that problem in that particular way, then you are the one to use your genius to fix and heal that problem. And the last idea that I think I will offer is keep going. That if you plant a seed now, it might take a long time before that tree bears fruit, but you have to plant that seed, and you have to water it, and you have to love it, and you have to treat it well, and you have to stay with it. So keep going. Your thinking is good. Fix that problem. Don't stop.
And I think this last point here just reminds me again of this. I have this picture in my mind about this piece that you're creating, pedaling against resistance, and how you keep going, even if it's hard, because that's when we're going to come out stronger on the other side.
Yeah.
The world needs your thinking. Well, the world certainly needs your thinking, Adam.
Thank you.
I've been so fortunate to be around you and absorb your lessons over the years, and would love to see you again in Rwanda when that becomes possible. But I'm just so grateful for you spending this time sharing your thoughts with us, educating me, and giving me a lot more important questions to ask as I move forward. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you for your leadership at Mindleaps and for changing so many lives around the world. You're such an inspiration to me and to so many. I appreciate you.
You may be talking to me, but it's a whole team of amazing dance teachers that are making this happen. So
thank you to them as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Adam. Stay
All
well.
right.
I need your energy.
You as well. Thank you. Murakoze.
Murakoze Janet.
Bye.
Okay, stay safe.